Okay, welcome back to our series. This is Francis Online Tuition, powered by Odum Business Consult. Please do well and subscribe to our channel and share the video with all your friends on your social media accounts. Okay, and learn more on www.ghanaonlineeducation.com. Okay, and for any further information, you can WhatsApp me on the number that you see on the screen. Today we are going to look at financial reporting, accounting standard. Okay, but the topics that we are going to consider under this course has to do with accounting standard, published companies accounts, analysis and interpretation, group accounts. Okay, but we have so many subtopics under each topic. Okay, so don't forget that. So we will take you through all the necessary topics that you need to know under this particular course. Okay, so starting with chapter 1, we are going to look at accounting standards, and the first one that we are going to consider has to do with IAS 16, which has to do with property, plant and equipment. Okay, property, plant and equipment. So let's look at the objective for the lesson. So by the end of the lesson, you'll be able to know the purpose for this standard, the scope, okay, and some definitions within the standard. So without much ado, let's begin with the objective. So one will ask, what is the purpose for bringing out IAS 16? Accounting has to do with rules, regulation, okay? The accountant has to follow some sort of rules in presenting information in the final statement or financial statement, okay? Especially for the public companies, they are obliged to follow the laid down procedure in presenting information that has to do with final account, okay? And in accounting for investment in PPE, which has to do with property, plant and equipment, the rules or the standard meant for that is IAS 16. And when you say IAS, we are talking about International Accounting Standard, okay, issued by International Accounting Standard Board. So the objective for this standard is to prescribe the accounting treatment for PPE so that the users of financial statement can discern information about the entity's investment in 8 properties, plant and equipment, okay, and changes in such investment. In our introductory to financial accounting, we got to know that there are users of accounting information, and we provide information to these users so that they can make business decisions concerning the company or the business, okay? So one of the ways that users will be able to know how much the company has invested in their PPE, then there should be a standard that will stipulate the rules that accountant has to follow in presenting information concerning their investment in PPE and changes in such investment. So the objective for IAS 16 has to do with the accounting treatment for PPE, so that users will be able to get a lot of information about, or will get the right information about the entity's investment in PPE, okay, and changes in those investments. Now that we are done with the objective, let's move on to the scope, okay? When you say scope, when should we use IAS 16, okay? When can we say that, or where should we apply IAS 16, the rules in IAS 16? So let's look at the scope, what the standard is saying. It said that the standard shall be applied in accounting for PPE and equipment except when other standard requires or permits a different accounting treatment. Okay, so the standard is saying that accountants are supposed to follow the laid down procedure in the IAS 16 in accounting for their investment in PPE. Okay, you'll get to know the meaning of PPE later. So they are to use the rules in the IAS 16 in accounting for PPE. Okay, so the moment they are dealing with PPE, the standard that they are supposed to follow is IAS 16, unless other accounting standards prescribe different accounting treatment. Okay, because we have so many accounting standards. You can talk of IAS 40, okay, which has to do with investment. So we have different accounting standard, and if a different accounting standard prescribe a different way of dealing with a PPE in that aspect, then IAS 16 will cease from that moment. Okay, but once there is no different accounting treatment for that, or accounting standard prescribing different accounting treatment, then the IAS should be used when we are dealing with PPE. Okay, so now that we've known the meaning or the scope of this standard, or when should we use this standard, let's move on to some of the definitions in the standard. Okay, so within the standard, we have the following definition and their specific meaning attached to it. Okay, so we can see we have carrying amount or value, CV, we have cost, we have depreciable amount, we have depreciation, we have fair value, we have property, plant and equipment. Okay, so these are some of the definitions. There are so many definitions that we'll be considering under this standard. Okay, so let's begin with the carrying amount or the value of PPE. So when you say the carrying amount of PPE, we are saying the amount at which an asset is recognized after deducting accumulated depreciation and accumulated impairment losses. Okay, so when we are talking of CV, which has to do with carrying value or the carry amount, we are talking about the amount which is being shown on the financial statement for PPE when we've deducted accumulated depreciation and that of accumulated impairment losses. Later in our series, we will be considering what is meant by depreciation and that of accumulated impairment losses, so don't worry about that. But for now, I want you to know when we are saying carry amount, we are saying that the amount at which an asset is being presented or is being shown on the face of the financial statement after, okay, deducting the accumulated depreciation for the period or for that particular PPE and then the accumulated impairment losses for that particular PPE. Okay, so we can say that the formula for, okay, we will get to know the formula of carrying value later in our series. Okay, so for now I want you to know that when we say carrying amount or value, we are trying to say that is the amount at which an asset is being presented on the face of the financial statement or the financial position after we've taken away the total depreciation and then the total impairment losses for that particular PPE. Okay, and let's move on to the cost of PPE, or when you say cost in the standard, what are we trying to say? Cost has to do with is the amount of cash or cash equivalent paid or the fair value of the other consideration given to acquire an asset at the date of its acquisition or construction. Okay, so when you say the cost of an asset or cost of an item, we are trying to say that the cash that you paid for or any other consideration that you give in exchanging of or in getting the item in possession or at the date of its construction. Okay, so the money that you spent in getting the item in your premises at the date of its acquisition or construction. When you say the date of acquisition, you are trying to say the date that you bought the item, okay? Either the cash that you paid for or cash equivalent, anything that apart from cash that you give in exchange of that particular item at the date of its acquisition or construction is what is meant by the cost of an item or the cost of the PPE. Okay, so assuming you went to the shop to buy a phone, the money that you paid for or anything that you exchanged for that particular phone at that moment is what is known as cost when it comes to the IAS 16. Okay, we have so many components when it comes to the cost. We'll be looking at it later in this series. Okay, so when you say cost, just bear in mind that the amount of cash or the cash equivalent paid or the fair value of the other consideration. So when you say other consideration, as I said, assuming you went to the phone shop to buy a phone, maybe you didn't pay by cash, but rather you give, let's say, your maybe your wallet, okay, in exchange of that particular presentation on this series. In our upcoming series, we'll be looking at the other definition being stipulated in the accounting standard, which has to do with IAS 16. Thank you very much for watching, and please, if you have not subscribed to the channel, do well to subscribe to the channel and press on the bell icon so that whenever we upload a new video on the channel, you will get a notification for that. If you have any suggestion or opinion or any question, you can leave them in the comment section and I will be excited to attend to it. Please do well and share the video with your friends on all your social media accounts, and I will be glad for that. And learn more at www.ghanaonlineeducation.com. Thank you very much for watching.